nami, tuungane tuache kuzozana. Watu wa upendo, hauna adui, hauna kifani kaka.
It's pole pole going slow, but still we'll keep forgetting what's behind.
Twende Afrika heyo,
2020, kuja nami
2020,
pande pande,
pande pande,
weongoza nikufuate nitiende, beri beri
2020,
kwete shule, zunguka nene.
Shino narudo kupatana kutitibu dirire.
twahitaji upendo ili tusonge mbele.
Kutambura kwedu zichida hati narudo.
Ukosefu wa upendo ulete dhiki ya
To Mama Africa, the poverty and war.
mambo ni twende.
Wish we had a fighting chance to show off who we are. 2020, kuja nami
2020, pande pande,
weongoza nikufuate nitiende, beri beri
2020,
kwete shule, zunguka nene. 2020, kuja nami
2020,
pande pande,
pande
weongoza nikufuate nitiende, beri beri
2020,
kwete shule, zunguka nene. Bongo than us, bongo than us, bongo than us.
sitaki. Ukiumizwa, hata mimi ninasikia uchungu. Oyoyo, kiangaishwa, ninalia ukilia dada. Chidogo banda, sauti yangu inokuda. Paulo sua, moyo wangu unorwaza. Unorwaza mama. Ibariki Afrika.
Operation Sledgehammer. Tarehe 14 mwezi wa Oktoba, tuliingia kule nchini Somalia. Nia yetu kulinda mipaka yetu, nia yetu kutetea wanyonge. Hii ndio mara ya kwanza tangu uhuru, mara ya kwanza kwenda vitani nje ya nchi, mara ya kwanza kujikomboa, ya kwanza kutoka nje kwenda kuinusuru nchi ya Kenya kwa maadui. Ndio naimba Kenya Defense Forces, eko kwa kulinda nchi yetu. KDF, Kingaya Wazalendo, Kenya Defense Forces, Kenya Defense Forces, tunawaombea ujasiri. KDF, the pride of our nation. Heshima zetu kwa wote walio. Operation Sledgehammer. Tarehe 14 mwezi wa Oktoba, tuliingia kule nchini nia yetu kulinda mipaka yetu, nia yetu kutetea wanyonge. Hii ndio mara ya kwanza tangu uhuru, mara ya kwanza kwenda vitani nje ya nchi, mara ya kwanza kujikomboa, ya kwanza kutoka nje kwenda kuinusuru nchi ya Kenya kwa maadui. Ndio naimba Kenya Defense Forces, eko kwa kulinda nchi yetu. KDF, Kinkaya Wazalendo, Kenya Defense Forces, Kenya Defense Forces, tunawaombea ujasiri. KDF, the pride of our nation. Heshima zetu kwa wote walioaga, heshima zetu kwa wale waliobaki, hawakutishwa na risasi za maadui, hawakutishwa na bomu kwenye vita. KDF wamepigana bila uoga, wamepigana kwa niaba yetu sisi wa Kenya. Hawakujali hatari iliyoko, hawakujali hatari iliyo mwituni, wamevumilia baridi kali, ukombozi Kismayu na changamoto.
The chairperson, mic check, 1 2 1 2. The chairperson, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, commissioners, members of the NCIC secretariat and staff, invited guests, members of various stakeholders, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to this one of the most auspicious events or points of the Kenyan electioneering period, where the NCIC feel of what to expect in the next 69 days or so in terms of mapping electoral violence index in the country, with a lot of good news. My name is Ben Kitili. It is my pleasure and privilege and honor to be here today. My job really today is to take us through some of the crucial parts of this program as the NCIC gives the country a feel of what to expect, breaking down some of the numbers, what their search has said. And without further ado, I would like to request that we all be upstanding for the National Assembly as well as the East African Community Assembly. Thank you. National anthem and the East African Community Anthem.
Tutimize na malengo yetu, jumuiya yetu sote tulilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you for the national anthem and the East African Community Anthem. So we are running a bit late behind schedule, so we'll try to...
Thanksgiving, Lord. We are grateful, Lord, that as stakeholders, Lord, to be able to analyze the state of our country, Lord, and even as we check on the conflict situation in our country, Lord, that we may think of what you tell us in your word, Lord, that we're asking you, Lord, to guide us and lead us, oh God. As we near the elections, Lord, for this year, we ask you, our Father and our Lord, that, Lord, you will give us peace. We ask you, Lord, that as we map conflict, Lord, we will see how best, Lord, can we bring cohesion and tolerance, Lord, in our country, Lord. Where there's conflict, Lord, give us a spirit of dialogue, O Jehovah God. Where there's conflict, Lord, give us a spirit of mediation, Lord. Where there's conflict, Lord, may you show us your way, Lord, that we may be able to live together as your people and as your children, Lord. So may you guide us and give each and every stakeholder the grace to undertake their duties, Lord, as you have mandated them to do, Lord. So may you lead us today, guide us, O Jehovah God, and may this day, Lord, be a day that we'll say thank you for revealing to us more, that we may use it, Lord, to bring peace and be mediators in this country, Lord. Glory and honor be to your name, Lord, for this is our prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we pray and believe. Amen.
Thank you, Watson. All right, like I said earlier, it's my privilege and honor really to be here this morning. And it is a high-level meeting, important for our electioneering period. But I would like to make it as easy and interactive as possible. So before we go to the key speakers of the morning, I want to introduce some of the members of the groups and stakeholders in this electioneering period that are here this morning. Tuko sawa? I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell him or her, elections bila noma. I can't hear. Elections bila noma. All right, thank you so much. So in the house this morning, we have with us Haki Imani. We can't get everybody to introduce themselves, so I'd like you to just stand briefly and wave. Haki Imani, thank you, sir. We also have with us the National Police Service, representative of the police service. We also have with us the European Center for Electoral Support. They are in the house somewhere. Also with us is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. Thank you. We also have with us the National Gender and Equality Commission. Thank you, madam. We also have with us in the house the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, DCI. Thank you, sir. We also have with us the Embassy of Sweden. Thank you, madam. The National Council of Persons with Disability also is in the house this morning. We also have with us Independent Police Oversight Authority, IPOA. Thank you. We also have with us the Commission on Administrative Justice. Also with us, the National Youth Council. Anybody? Thank you, madam. Global Peace Foundation are also in this fit. Thank you. We also have with us very quickly, we have UNDP. Also with us, we have PeaceNet. Thank you, sir. We also have with us the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, PPDT, also in the house this morning. And finally, we also have KENET, Kenya Economic Youth Network. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights also is represented here this morning. And also, of course, finally, we have the host institution of this event this morning, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. We have the commissioners here seated here. They can just want to acknowledge their presence. Round of applause for our commissioners, please, led by the chairman, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia. Thank you. And of course, the members of the Secretariat and staff. So at this point, I would like to hand over this point of the program to the CEO.
Lego. Mama yangu ni Kenya, baba yangu ni Kenya, kabila yangu ni Kenya. Yeah, 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 yeah. Takulinda wewe Kenya, takutunza wewe milele. Hey. One tribe, one Kenya, one nation.
Thank you, DJ. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the CEO of the Commission, Secretary to the Commission, Dr. Skita Ocharo, to make the opening remarks.
Thank you very much. I wish to acknowledge the representative of our chief guest, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Mr. Osia, of the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, Ms. Annika Shage, Embassy of Sweden, Dr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator of Kenya, our chairman, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, the chairman for NCIC, chairs of the independent commissions who are here with us, the vice chair NCIC and the vice chair ESCC, Dr. Monica Moiro, NCIC commissioners, commissioners from other independent commission, all the distinguished guests who are here today, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning again. Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the inaugural Conflict Hotspot Mapping Report for Kenya today. I'm greatly honored to be part of this gathering today as we launch this long-awaited report. Exactly 5 months ago, the Commission embarked on a journey to map out hotspots in this country with the aim of acquiring a detailed understanding of the peace and security situation in the country. This is to provide proper policy direction ahead of the August polls. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission have been mandated to ensure that Kenya remains a peaceful and cohesive society. Every day, we are reminded of this task bestowed upon us by Kenyans, which we constantly strive to deliver, in spite of the many challenges we face. We are proud that once again, in line with our mandate of rallying Kenyans towards peaceful coexistence irrespective of our difference, we have taken lead in pointing out key areas of focus. Our friends, the development of Conflict Hotspot Mapping Report has not been an easy feat, but here we are this morning celebrating the culmination of these hard yards that were put in realizing this dream. I congratulate the Commission, led by our dedicated team of staff, for coming up with an elaborate report that will transform the peace of cohesion agenda in this country. I'm greatly impressed by the quality of the ideas put in this report to establish factors that are likely to trigger electoral violence across the 47 counties. Also map out county conflicts hotspots with potential for electoral violence and proffer recommendations on the interventions that can prevent and mitigate electoral violence. I'm satisfied that the study was well thought through and clearly outlines practical strategies for adoption by all peace actors towards the realization of an election bila noma. I note with satisfaction that this report is aligned to our roadmap to a violence-free election and to key policy instruments, including the Commission's 2020-2025 strategic plan. The outlined key focus areas address key drivers of conflict that include the lack of trust, the subculture of violence, selfish leadership, ethnic polarization, as well as untimely and inadequate response to conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, with approximately 70 days to the next general election, we have revamped and strengthened our collaboration with like-minded institutions and enhanced our prevention, early warning, and early response mechanisms to bring the recommendations of this report to fruition. We will continue to broaden our collaboration across board to ensure we achieve the much-needed peace. That said, distinguished guests, let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Commission to express our profound gratitude to our development partners and stakeholders for your continued support as well as collaboration in our shared values and the areas of interest. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the NCIC commissioners and staff for working tirelessly to have this report launched. God bless Kenya and God bless each one of us. Thank you very much. The next. Let me invite Millicent of MC to come and guide us in the next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam CEO. Another round of applause, please, for the CEO. Before I call on Commissioner Farah to give us a breakdown of the, mic check, 1, 2, of the electoral index. I want to say that as a member of the Fourth Estate, we are usually a lot of times at loggerheads with NCIC. Sometimes we have been criticized for being a bit too much, but we have to tell you, for most of us in the newsrooms, we all agree on the importance of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, having come off that unfortunate 2007 post-poll violence. And of course, as we cover the elections and the rallies and all this, the drama that we are seeing, we also are aware that we have to give the issue of peace in the polls a chance. Let me now call upon Commissioner Abdulaziz Farah to take us through the next stage, which is to give us a breakdown of the results of the search. Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, MC. Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed. You know, I used to be a politician, and one time our team leader, that by then, taught us to shelf this tedious protocol thing, because you'll waste time, you know, recognizing everybody in the room, and you end up wasting half an hour mentioning people's name. I think mine is very simple, and I don't know why this program was written like this, the MC should have continued calling the next speakers. I'm acting like an MC now. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to welcome Commissioner Dr. Danfas Makori, who is the chair of the committee which has done the job that is before us today, to give us the summary of the study, so that he keeps us in the know of what is ahead of us. Karibu Daktari.
Not to use all protocol, but it's good to scan through. It doesn't really matter much, but sometimes it's important to recognize our special guest here. So I'm going to do that, and the special guest from the Ministry of Interior, representing KBC, is here. Ombudsman, Ncick. We have a number of sister commissions, of which this report, the stakeholders to this report, and involvement, that's why they are here. Our development partners from the EU, our other partners, development partners too, are here represented. I see a number of them who are recognized too. That's why he said it's tedious, but it's a number of people. Ben already recognized them. But ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning again. My name is Danfas Makori, as you've heard, and mine, first of all, is to thank everybody who's here. You're here because you're important as far as our elections is concerned. You're a stakeholder in our elections. That's why you're here. That's why this report involves you. And we're grateful to have you. Grateful also to have the members of the Fourth Estate. As Ben has said, they always staff on us, but you're always good partners with them. You play a critical role, and as you will see in the report, you have a very vital role to play as far as our elections is concerned. Mine is to take you to the report. And before I do that, we've changed the program a little bit, as you can see, so that we can do the report, so that our guests can respond to it. You know, it will be awkward for them to give remarks to what they don't know, right? So it makes sense for me to give the report, then you can respond to what I've presented. You can say, yeah, that's not good, or it's bad, or we agree. So that's why we've changed the program a little bit, so that we can afford you the privilege of just going through, digesting it, synthesizing it, and therefore you can give your remarks as it is. I wish to point to the screens, and only see two that are on. What happened to the back screens? Because the guests here at the front cannot see any screens at all. I'll ask the team to screens on. This set of commissioners came in 2019, November. In 2019, November, we had one clear mission and one clear task: to midwife the election process of Kenya, to make sure the country is peaceful, cohesive, united. Simple objective, very clear, we'll focus on that. We knew why this commission was formed, out of 07 or 08 violence, and you know it very well. Therefore, for us, it was imperative that we make sure this country can never go back to what happened in 07. Therefore, as a set of commissioners, we purposed, we'll do everything it takes to make sure, in our power, and above and beyond, to make sure that the fact that we as a country are peaceful, are cohesive, are united. Elections is a democratic process. Our constitution enshrines it, embraces it, and we are mandated to make sure this country is steadfast. Therefore, we put certain measures in plan, certain strategies in plan, certain policies in plan. We focused solely, and as much as we have many things we need to do in this country, to make sure that as we come to this process, the country is united. And one of the things we did is launch a roadmap to peaceful election, which the CEO has mentioned. And a component of that is what we are doing today. Here, for us, is to highlight to you, for us as a commission, where we think might be a hotspot. It's a study that has been done scientifically, and engaging key stakeholders here, from Ministry of Interior to National Police Service to IPOA, ACC. Those were mandated as institutions, and they all sit in an interagency committee to make sure the election is steadfast. And therefore, whilst you're here as that, we're still committed to that. And as you can see, we'll challenge. Let me start by that. The screen's not on. The back screens? Okay. The team here cannot see the report. If you don't mind, I'll just proceed. You try to position yourselves to make sure you can see, but if not, just listen to my narrative. I'll try to be descriptive as much as possible, so for those who cannot see, they can get to it. I'll peruse. All right. Our hotspot. Why the hotspot mapping? Just a minute. So why did you do the mapping? That's very clear. For us, we need to make decisions based on data and engage this data and give this data to other institutions. Therefore, they can make informed decisions, because stakes are very high. And we cannot just arbitrarily decide this place is a problem or we need to do this. So one of the reasons we chose to do this, we chose a scientific way to make sure that we are informed, objectively speaking, of where we are going as a country. Okay? And then we categorize the risks, because resources are always limited. You cannot be everywhere at all times. Therefore, we say we have to categorize the risk. Where is the high risk areas, so we can focus on those key areas as we are. And of course, we make recommendations. Our mandate as NCAC, number one mandate in our act, is to advise government. Is to advise government. A government is all government institutions, whether it's IBC, whether it's BCC, to say this is what you need to do. But you cannot advise arbitrarily. You need to have correct information. They can say this is why you need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why we went to this report. For us, there's a rationale behind this, and I already explained to it. We know the heightened temperatures we exist right now. We know our country, where we've come from, like I explained before. And for the first time, we are seeing different dynamics as far as politics is concerned. Therefore, we made this decision to make sure that at least for a fact, you as stakeholders, and even a Kenyan institution, Kenyan citizens at large, are fully aware of what is going on. Here are our objectives as far as we are concerned as a commission. The objective of this study is very simple. One, establish factors likely to trigger violence, identify conflict hotspots, and do the recommendations, as I've said. Now, I'm going to just spend a few minutes on this part, the methodology, so that, as you can see, how did we arrive at what we arrived? You'll see the certain information which you will see, which will be shocking, which will be surprising, which will be challenging, so that you can understand what we came up with. Part of what we did in this report, of course, is engage key stakeholders. And when we engage some of them, they were uncomfortable or didn't embrace everything that was this report. And that's why we said, let's be very systematic. So what we did, and just give me a few minutes just to be technical for a minute. We adopted a cross-sectional mixed design approach. Okay, I'm talking about FDGs, key interview participants. I'm talking about surveys. Why? Because each has its strengths and weaknesses. This is the first report of its kind we've done as a commission and in the country. We used quantitative, qualitative data, and then we triangulated all that we've learned to make sure that the sampling is accurate, is as required, This report has been subjected to peer reviews in terms of on the research in academia. They've gone through it, critique it, to make sure it meets the standards as it ought to be from intellectual perspective. And that is why we used all this random purpose sampling, so that make sure that at the end of the day, the report is sound and scientific as possible. Based on that, this thing is not responding.
Baba yangu ni Kenya.
Okay, thank you. IT guys, please follow with me as we go. The lag on just fix it, please. Thank you. As you can see, that's the data we collected, just as a very summary. You'll get the full report detailed. The sampling we have is 1,849 people. We arrived at basically from those who do statistics, from the Yamane formula, which requires that we go above. Actually, we did more than that. We did 1,914. The formula required 1,814. How we broke down the questionnaires, as I said, this is a mixed cross-sectional approach design. So we did the questionnaires, we did FDGs, we did key informant studies and interviews. That's how we came to that total of that on all the counties. Here's a construction of the index, just quickly. This is more technical, but just peruse very, very quickly. This is how we constructed our index. We have, of course, the variable selection. We have examining empirical relationships, and then we did the index scoring together. And I'll explain that how we did it. According to the Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, called IDEA, there are many factors that drive or affect election violence. So we have what we call exogenous factors, we have internal factors, okay? So, and that's how we look at all the factors to determine this. So the exogenous factors are things that do not so much relate to the election itself, the underlying, the state of the economy, for example, okay? That is not directly related to the election, but it will affect the peace and the security of the election. And the 10 factors are listed there, which we don't have time to go through them. And then we have endogenous factors, which actually include the things that affect the elections. So for example, transmission of data, okay, of the election itself. How many polling stations do we have? Those actually do affect, because you know for a fact, as the judgment came, the election is a process. So those things do affect the election itself, therefore are directly related to what we did. Then what we did was, we had 3 things we looked at to come up to our study. So we have potential triggers, number 1, and we have what we call triggers. What can trigger the election? Okay, of course we know the things that can trigger elections. It's hate speech, when politicians argue and say things that they shouldn't say, fake news, potential violence. Then we have another composite. Okay, the second composite we looked at was the weak institutional capacities, because these do affect, at the end of the day, how elections are perceived by a population. Okay, so here we are ourselves too as a commission. Inadequate conflict resolution capacities, lack of enactment of peace policies, low trust in the RPP, low trust in local international observers. Basically, there's low trust level in all institutions or agencies that are supposed to manage our election. That's a study. We're not saying it, is what the study revealed. Then we looked at the pre-existing conflict factors. I won't mention all of them. The informal settlements, okay? In our pastoralist areas, competition over scarce resource. There's already conflict there. In other places, existence of organized and criminal gangs. Let me give you an example of that. In Mombasa only, in the coast area, there's 93 criminal gangs, 93 of them. 93. That's in the coast only. And in this election, they are being used not just, no longer are they doing criminal activity, they are being paid to do and cause chaos by the politicians. That's an example why it is already there and they are using it. Okay, drug and substance abuse, that looks very small. Nakada is here too. But I can tell you for a fact, if you look at the economic survey that was released by KNBS, was it last week? Yeah, KNBS released, I was reading that report. Please read that. It's 452 pages of excellent data. The amount of drugs that were impounded last year has more than tripled. Now, these guys, these young men, will use these drugs, of course, to do what? Cause violence. So drugs, substance abuse is a national security issue. It's not a menace, it's a national security issue. So looking at that, what are the key findings? So I've given you the background, how we came at it. What are the key findings of our study? So, I'm going to introduce you to two people, two names that you'll be familiar with. One is called Kevin, one is called Kevik. Okay, now see, if you can see Kevin here, I'm not talking about you. Sorry, I'll explain who Kevin is here, and Kevik. So, I have given you those three indices. So we combined them, okay, to come up with a composite index. So if you look at the pre-existing conflicts, the triggers, and the weak institutional capacities, if you combine all of them, you have a country composite index of 53.43%. Kevin, what is Kevin? What is Kevin? Nobody knows what Kevin is. I'm going to explain to you what Kevin is just briefly. Kevin is the Kenya Election Violence Index. As a country, Kevin, okay, as a country, we're at 53.4%. Okay? That's what Kevin is, Kenya Election Violence Index. Okay? So that's what Kevin is. So now you learn something new today. So Kevin, who's Kevin? Not Kevo. Kevin. Kevin is what? Kenya Election Violence Index. The composite of that is 53.43%. What we are saying as a commission, there's a 53.43% likelihood of there being election violence. I'm going to break it down. Let me just quickly go to the classification of county nature's vulnerability. I'm going to skip all that, there's so much to cover, but I'm just going to be very precise so that we can now move forward. The classification, okay. So here are the classification. Here's what we did, okay. We have a high-risk counties, which I'm going to break down, okay. Counties that are above 71%, medium risk, and low risk. Now, remember I told you about the Kevin. Kevin is Kenya Election Violence Index. Now, Kevik is the county one. So Kevik is, as far as counties are concerned, I'm going to break down the counties and how we come. So we have a high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So here we are. High risk counties. Number one, topping the list, is Nairobi, 79.85%. 79.85%, basically 80%. What we are saying as a commission, Nairobi has an 80% chance of experiencing election violence. Now that is extremely high. Close to it is Nakuru, 75.77%. Kericho, 74.81%. I'm going to focus on Kericho a little bit, because as you can see, most of them are urban centers apart from Kericho. And Kericho even has surprised us, and how it arrived, it's number 3 on the country in terms of election is concerned. But I explained to you the methodology, I explained to you how we arrived at it, and by examining 47 counties, Kericho becomes number 3 at 74.8%. Kisumu, 72.46%. Uasin Gishu, 72.25%. Mombasa at 71.1%. Basically, every county that is above 70% is high risk. They are metropolitan counties, but more importantly, if you look at the pattern, where are they, apart from Mombasa, most of them, in Nairobi, where are most of the counties? What is the pattern? Just look at the pattern. Where are they? Rivali and Nyanza, right there. Okay? So here's a breakdown. Remember the 3 things I told you we looked at. The triggers. Nairobi is very high. The institutional capacities, which are weak, and pre-existing conflicts. So the Kebik score, this is county specific, is 79 points. That is how we graded all of them. So look at the 3 factors, all of them, and we came to that conclusion at 79%. So why high risk? As you can see, most of them are situated in Rift Valley and Nyanza. In this place, we have pre-existing conflicts, as we know. We have inequalities, especially in Nairobi. 61% of Nairobians eat 1 meal a day. 65% of Nairobi lives in the slums of our city. Okay? So those high inequalities, remember Agenda 4, as far as what brought this country together, what was Agenda 4? High inequality. That was drove this country to the brink last time. So informal settlement issue, negative political rhetoric. Nakuru is a center for fake news, hate speech, and disinformation. One of the things that we do as a commission is monitor online chatter. Okay, we do that a lot. These days, hate speech has moved from political rallies and incitement political rallies to where? To social media, right? So there's no county that comes close to Nakuru as far as incitement is concerned. There's numerous groups, some of them which are already pulling down, that are driving hate and incitement in the county of Nakuru. Okay? I won't go all of them, but just want to give you an example of that. Here are the medium high-risk counties. They are there. There is Narok at 74.3%, Marsabit 63.2%, Laikipia 65.6%, Lamu 71.6%, Baringo 61%. Actually, Isiolo should be top of Baringo. And then Baringo, then Meru 61%. Samburu 58%, Bomet 57.6%. As I give this data, let me just make it very clear. This study was done between January and April. It's a 4-month study. This is a dynamic study. It's not static, okay? Because we're also looking at dynamic factors like I listed earlier. So things could have changed today. So for example, there are countries which will move to medium high risk. There are countries which will move to high risk. For example, I can tell you, if you use the same study we did and look at a county like Homa Bay will move to a high risk very quickly. True or false? Yes. Those who know, no. Okay? Bungoma will move very quickly because things have what? Changed very much. So this was studied between, but we are constantly reviewing, so I can tell you, we of course have to release this, but as we engage, we'll give you more data as we go. And those are the medium low risk counties, which I will not be able to go to. Conclusions and recommendations. I want to close there. And then I'll go back to some scripts that I skipped. They're part of the recommendations. There's a reason, of course, we did this. We want to make sure this country is peaceful. And therefore, we have certain conclusions which we came up to and certain recommendations which are important. That's why you're here, especially for sister agencies that we work with closely in the security sector. Okay? So these are the key findings, and then I'll give you the conclusions. Key findings. 1, Kenya is likely to experience electoral violence? The Kevin index is 53.43%. The highest is Nairobi at 80%. Lowest is Embu at 30%. Okay? Key finding number 2, democratic governance. Okay, governance. And that's why, of course, this is important actually for our development partners. They always focus on that. Our institutions, all institutions that are accredited to and are supposed to manage our elections. If the full report will show you how the low trust institutions, whether it's judiciary, whether it's NCIC itself, whether it's IBC, whether it's IPOA, whether it's ORPP, all of the institutions. So we need to look at governance. We're struggling there. Number 4, organized gangs. These are key findings. Proliferation of organized gangs, goons, militia, and some juvenile young people. This is a worrying trend. I'll give you an example. Politicians in Nakuru, as they do anywhere in the country, mobilized youth. Groups. So these groups evolved into what? Criminal gangs. So all of a sudden, in a city that don't have criminal gangs, in Nakuru you see a proliferation of criminal gangs in Nakuru. We have militias in the country. That's why Marsabit ranks very high, because they can now be used, paid, and deputized to cause violence. Drug and substance abuse is extremely high. I want you to spend time in Mombasa, in the slums of Mombasa. Just go there. In Nairobi here, for example, up Mlango Kubwa, Huruma, Mathare. We spend a lot of time in the ground. So this is not just desktop research. We spend a lot of time. We know, we've seen it. We've seen the danger of substance abuse. The likelihood of there being violence also is driven by pre-existing conflicts. It's very easy for those who are in conflict studies to know that something can quickly turn from what is there right now. We have, of course, conflicts that raging in the country. We see what's happening in Baringo. We know what's happening in Marsabit. What's happening in Isiolo. For them to quickly turn from whatever they're fighting over to an election issue. Hate speech, propaganda, political rhetoric is extremely high. We know that for a fact. And we've, as a commission, I'll tell you what we've been doing later. I've truly tried to engage the political class to make sure they don't go there. Capacity in state and non-state institutions. Now, half of Kenyans have faith in the capacity to address emerging conflicts. So half Kenyans believe that the judiciary, ORPP, IEBC, IPOA, EACC, DCI, and many other AAC, they have faith that we will deliver this election. They're looking to us. Here are the recommendations, finally. Because of the insurmountable work that is ahead, we have to have a multi-stakeholder collaboration and coordination of action strategies. That is a must. We cannot never work in silos. That is why all commissions are here and agencies that do security are here. And we work with them closely. We worked with them previously behind the scenes. I know we are doing a lot of things. And that's why we are doing those things, because election IBC, it's not IBC only. All of us have a responsibility and we must work together. Number two, we must enhance democracy. Okay, democracy must be enhanced. We must protect democracy, especially institutions that are mandated in our constitution to ensure democracy is entrenched in our country. Inclusiveness and transparency. I watched news yesterday, and IBC was very transparent that there's a possibility the systems were breached and somebody transferred voters from one area to the other. Did you see that? Did you see that? I was surprised. But that's a good thing, that level of transparency. Because you can imagine if they say that after election, after we discover that after election, of course there will be serious issues. So it is important that institutions, that's why we are doing this report. We are saying this is how it is as a country. The people who are critical of why would you give this report, I'm like, no. We have to be transparent. This is where we as a country so we know what to do. Okay? It is important that we as a country adopt this way forward. Transparency is critical. These are key recommendations to specific institutions that are here. The IBC, the National Police Service, and of course us, and they're listed here. They will be in the report. I don't want to read all what the recommendations are, but they're in the report. Okay? The media, let me just address the media because they are here. We've had serious engagement with editors, the Editors Guild, the Media Council of Kenya, on sensitive reporting. What I would urge you, our dear partners and our good friends, because we live in the what we call post-truth era, where truth is the first victim of any conflict, to make sure you're not a vector of disinformation, misinformation, that you verify what you report, that you filter what you report, you be sensitive, that we've engaged you, we have numerous trainings with the editors. So this is what I would urge you, especially as media. That's your responsibility. You have a constitution, you're recognizing the constitution, and for us as NCAC and a government agency, we urge you, because you have the liberty. The other day we were engaging observers from the AU and COMESA and the ACC, and the first thing they asked us, because they know the power we have in monitoring, is, are you going to stifle free speech? I said, no, that's not our part. We can never do that. But you know, our constitution is very clear where it limits to: hate speech, propaganda to war, you know what it limits to. CSOs, you have recommendations in this report, you'll get a report. You're a critical partner in this process, and we've worked hard to embrace all the CSOs. We don't believe CSOs are they're enemies. In fact, they're a force multiplier. Many of them are funding, they have technical support, so you'll see your role in this report. NLC has recommendations in the report, and let me just say this in conclusion, and I've skipped a lot because of time, and this is just key summary. It's a very detailed report. Let me conclude by saying this. As we did this report, this is to give you, the picture is not that gloomy. As we did this report, I'll give you an example. National Cohesion Integration Commission, in the border of Kisumu and Kericho, in the past 2 years, we've had over 23 engagements. 23 engagements. The border of Kisumu and Kericho. I'll give you an example. Nandi, Kakamega, we've had 19 engagements. Narok, 22. Nakuru, overwhelmingly 33. Uasin Gishu, 37. Community engagements, community dialogues. Because we could see where this is going. We've worked with our partners, especially on the ground. On the ground, when we go to the ground, we are with ORPP, with the IBC, to make sure the public trust them, that they do their part. We work closely with the Ministry of Interior, that's our line ministry, with the Ngaos from the regional commissioner. As a matter of fact, this report, because of the sensitivity report, we engaged the regional commissioner of Rift Valley just to look at it and critique and his view, and the county commissioner of Kericho and Kisumu. We sat with them. So we're working closely with every stakeholder that is here to make sure the country is set first. What am I saying to you? As National Cohesion Integration Commission, we've worked tirelessly to make sure we have interventions to distract violence. We've engaged politicians behind the scenes privately to make sure they tone down on the rhetoric. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as our Kevin index is 3.43%, we are confident, given the interventions we've had on the ground, and we have right now on the ground, this country will remain steadfast, united. We invite you as a commission to partner with us, to walk with us this journey, to make sure this country is peaceful, united, and steadfast. God bless you, and God bless this country. Thank you very much.
We have a list of guests lined up today to speak to us today. And because one of them wants to leave quickly, I will first call her in here. So Dr. Joyce Mutinda from Ncick, karibu sana. Please, a round of applause for our lady here. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to ride on the protocols established by the previous speakers. And I'm here today very, very happy. Somebody said remove that, and I take cue and I remove. Now you have seen me. I'm very, very happy because I am expected legally to be a commissioner in NCIC. But when the current commissioners came on board, somebody said, this one likes going to court and winning cases. And therefore, we have to change the law so that she doesn't sit in that commission. That did not help Kenya because this commission is a great friend to the National Gender and Equality Commission. And we still work together. And moving forward, I want to confirm to all and sundry, we are going to continue to work together. Allow me to start by congratulating my brother, Samuel, and the commissioners for a job well done. Because now we know the problem. What remains for us, we have been given the recommendations. What remains is to move that forward. And even as I congratulate you for a free, violence-free 2022 elections, I want to inform you that violence is the one that makes my special interest groups not participate fully in electioneering. These special interest groups, I will start with where I am, the older members of society. They don't want to come out and vote when there is push and pull. So when we have the violence, we are putting away all Kenyans who are 60 years and above. And for your information, most of them, almost all of them, have got voting cards and they are eligible voters. I am privy to a situation where somebody left the hospital bed to go and vote and go back to the hospital, an elderly person. So when we are having this violence, let us know that they are not going to vote. The other group which is affected, and this is my special interest group, is the youth. Part of our youth are not eligible voters. Part of them are eligible voters. But the misuse that we have seen of the youth, as you found out in the study, is what makes them not do that which they are expected to do. Yet they form 70% of the population of this country. I think we need to rethink. I have been talking to the youth and telling them there is no need of being misused. It is your life. You have longer life than the people misusing you. And I want to call upon the youth, members of the fourth estate, you need to drum up that the youth do not go that direction. We have the women who, because of violence, particularly sexual harassment, during electioneering, they tend to run away. They will either not vote or they will not come out. But I'm very happy now they have come out in large numbers as aspirants. Next week, we have organized a meeting, that is the National Gender and Equality Commission, to meet 10 counties to meet the women. What are we telling them? We are telling them women are endowed with something that the rest of us do not have, soft power. And we are telling the women, use the soft power. Don't go pushing people around. When they abuse you, try to turn that one around. And I always quote this one lady, I will not say her name, she wanted to be a senator. And she was abused so much. And people called her even a divorcee. And she said to them, especially when you are talking to me, remember, the man you want me abuse, or the man you want to abuse, is the father of my children. And people turned back and said, this is the same man who has organized against you. But she said, he is the father of my children, which is a fact. That soft power won this lady whatever seat she needed. She is a senator, as I talk to you. So I would call upon the ladies, turn it around. These are your children, these are your husbands, the father of your children. Why are you abusing them? There is no need. There is no need of us getting worked up. Elections will come and go. We have the persons with disabilities, the PWDs. And I know when we talk of violence, we forget there is this one man or one woman who will be on a wheelchair and wanting to vote. But because of violence, then they are thrown down and they are left for the dead. Now, they have not exercised their right to vote. Let us give them that particular space that is for them. They have a right. Chapter 4 of our Constitution enumerates the rights of these members of society. And finally, the minority and marginalized. When we talk of Baringo at the moment, my heart bleeds because the children are not going to school. Are we going to be having peaceful electioneering? If not, we have recommendations. We have representatives from the police here. We have IPOA. What are we doing? Does it mean the government cannot do something and bestow peace in Baringo? It's not only Baringo. I'm talking of Baringo, Marsabit, and any other place. We can do something. Now that our sister organization has done this study scientifically, please let us take it upon ourselves as we congratulate them for launching this study to go ahead and make sure there is no violence during electioneering in this country. I just want to end with the signature call of my brother. He says, election bila noma. I don't know whether this means peace. Does it mean peace? Just tell your neighbor, election bila noma. Thank you.
Asante sana, Dr. Joyce Mutinda. She is the chairperson of Ncick, that is the Gender Commission. And we appreciate the work that you're doing for the women and on behalf of the women of Kenya. As you can see, this room has very many women. Some are CEOs and they are doing very well. Others are commissioners, others are ambassadors. They need that, you know, support and someone clapping for them. And the vice chair is a woman as well. Thank you. Our next guest is a representative of the Inspector General of Police. That is Mr. Hilary Mutiambai. He couldn't make it today, but he sent the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Dominic Kisavi. Karibu sana. Please tumkaribishe kwa makofi. Asante, asante. Karibu.
Kabila yangu ni Kenya. Yeah, 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 yeah. Takulinda wewe Kenya.
The chairman of National Cohesion and Integration Commission, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Dominic Kisavi, and I'm here to represent the Inspector General, National Police Service. And on his behalf, I would like to thank the organizers for extending that invitation to the National Police Service. And I would like to say that as a service, we started preparing ourselves for the 2022 general elections way back in 2019. The reason being that we wanted to make sure that we do things differently and not business as usual, and make sure that the country is safe and secure for all to cast their votes. And apart from the preparations, National Police Service, jointly with the stakeholders, have been able during that time, that period, to prepare materials and manuals to assist the police commanders and officers under them to prepare for the elections adequately. And using those manuals so far developed, the National Police Service has also started a training program which started in March this year to make sure that all county commanders, all commanders under the service are well prepared and up to the task to ensure Kenya is a safe place for elections. We have so far trained all commanders at the county level, and we have started early this month of May training sub-county commanders and station commanders throughout the country. Recently, we just finished last week training of police commanders in Nairobi region. And also, we have started an engagement with the stakeholders and communities which we work in. Because we also realize that the partners and communities are an integral part of election security, and we want to make sure that we work with everybody to make sure that the Kenya is very safe. The National Police Service also has in place a very strong election security secretariat which is spearheading the preparations. One of the duties of this election security secretariat is to do a scanning of the country to identify hotspots in the country, to inform our commanders on the best way to prepare themselves and deploy adequately. And as a service, we like to partner, and we are ready to partner with all stakeholders and communities to ensure a safe and secure environment for voters, Kenyans in general, and our investors to do their business without fear of crime. And as we speak today, I would like to affirm that National Police Service is not only ready like yesterday, but we are ready to protect the country, to make sure that the Kenya remains one, and to make sure that democracy thrives. And all voters in this country will be ready, will be willing, and to cast their votes without fear in this country. And our partnership with other stakeholders also includes NCIC. In fact, NCIC has been very instrumental in training our commanders, and we appreciate that partnership and look forward to working closely with each other. Thank you very much, and God bless Kenya.
Asante sana, Mr. Kisavi. We appreciate the support that your office has been giving NCIC, and we have really enjoyed the partnership between you and us, and between us and even the office of the DCI. And my next guest is coming from the office of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. This office, ladies and gentlemen, is an office that has never let us down as NCIC. Anytime we need additional officers, they do it without us requesting twice. When we need them to make quick arrests to criminal politicians who are spewing hate speech, they do it in the best way possible. And we do not take it for granted, the support that this office has always granted us. And representing the Director of Criminal Investigations, Mr. Kinoti, today is Mr. John Gashomo. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Gachomo. I'm the Chief of Investigations at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. I pass regards of the Director General DCI, Mr. George Kinoti, CBS, who like have to be here with you today, but due to duties, he will not be able to attend this ceremony. So I wish to recognize the presence of the chairman, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, then our chief guest today, Mr. Hosea, and the vice chair, Abu Nyutu, and all Your Excellency, the ambassadors present. and all protocols observed, allow me to make a few remarks during this ceremony. I congratulate the NCIC today for this achievement in milestone in hotspot mappings, who help the DCI and the NCIC to work even better in deployment of resources effectively and efficiently with great impact to have tangible results. I also help the DCI and the NCIC in planning and projection to have a 360-degree monitoring and vibrant response to elections-related offenses. The DCI collaborates with NSIC, and already we have an able team attached to the NCIC to support in investigations. The DCI, in the spirit of multi-agents team, is supporting and also supports and will support even the future the NCIC in forensic analysis, in cybercrime. As well, we have DCI officers working at the CAK in support of this investigation spirit. DCI again will continue to support, as we have done in the past, in evidence gathering, intelligence collection, in support of investigations carried out by NCIC. Finally, the DCI supports the NCIC to achieve a just and equitable society, living in peace, unity, and dignity. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Asante sana, the Chief of Investigations, Mr. Gashomo. Please pass our regards to Mr. Kinoti, and thank you and to your office for your continuous support. Ladies and gentlemen, as I told you, we are blessed to have ladies CEOs in this office and in this gathering. And my next guest is the CEO of ORPP, Madam Anne Derito. She's the lady on the hot seat at the moment. We always see her in the papers, and we are glad that you made the time to come to our to this launch today. Karibu sana, Madam.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, Lego.
Sorry for that. The devil is a liar. I want to observe all the protocols, starting with the chairman of NCIC, the CEO of NCIC, commissioners, and all other institutions represented here, and guests. It's my pleasure and joy to join this event as you launch a very important report. The reason I am here is because we have always worked with NCIC, and especially because my clients, the political parties and politicians, are part of the business of elections, and probably the most likely people to cause or to be involved in the breach of peace that we so much desire as a country. And therefore, it's always a joy to continue working with NCIC and to see how best this election will be peaceful and will be free of any violence, and we'll be assured that every person who wants to participate has an opportunity to participate. Our institution, which run the business of political parties, is very much aware of the importance of peaceful election and the role of political parties and candidates in a peaceful elections. And we are very particular on the issue of implementation of the political parties' code of conduct. because if we implement the political parties code of conduct on the part of political parties, we are sure that we shall minimize the level of violence that can be there in an election. One of the issues that we have been insisting with the political parties is that the political parties leaders should take charge of their supporters, because supporters of a political process are probably the one who are likely to be triggered to cause violence. So we have been very particular to political parties that they should actually openly condemn violence and openly tell and contain their supporters by telling them that this election ought to be peaceful, and they have a role to make sure that the election is peaceful. And we have actually seen political leaders in political parties doing that, condemning violence and saying, signing even commitment pledges in terms of saying that they want a peaceful election. As an office, we have about 350 monitors across the country, specifically to monitor the political parties' code of conduct and to monitor any process of violence, of anything that triggers and anything that can be seen to be a cause. And we are receiving reports, which probably some of them we shall be sharing with the NCIC on areas that our monitors feel that we should focus. Where political parties are involved, we are actually taking action as and when a need for action comes about. Finally, we want to hold also a caravan by political parties themselves, a peaceful caravan by political parties themselves through the political parties liaison committee. We expect probably the other week after next week, we shall have the peace caravan across the hotspot, and I am glad to hear and to read from the report which are the most likely areas of those hotspots, because that's where we want to target as political parties, so that they go together and say, we are here, we are political parties, that we are the one who are advocating for peace. I want to finish by saying that we are committed as an institution and also as people managing political parties to a peaceful election. And we shall talk to them, we shall liaise with all the institutions that are required, and we have seen a lot of support from various institutions in terms of supporting the processes. And we are also working very closely with IBC in the implementation of the code of conduct for elections, which also ties together a bit with the political parties' code of conduct. One of the issues that we are very keen about is the sanctions that comes with the behavior that can destabilize peace in an electoral process. And we are very keen to implement the sanctions that comes as a result of that. And political parties are aware that we are serious. Our clarion call to them and to everybody and to Kenyans is that uchaguzi sio uadui. Political parties can talk or have different opinion, but it's not an enmity. Finally, we can work together and move our country to the next level. And by all intent and purpose, we know that we shall have a peaceful election if we, all of us, work together. And I want to embrace the report and also the steps taken by NCIC in establishing the facts on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Derito, and we applaud your decision to have the peace caravans. Sisi kama NCIC mkituhitaji, we will be glad to join you in that peace caravan. And thank you for holding the political parties responsible for their supporters. That is something we really need. Our next guest, ladies and gentlemen, is the Vice Chair of EACC, Dr. Monica Mwiru, who is representing the chairman. Karibu sana. Karibishe na makofi tafadhali, tusichoke. The speakers are many, but we are just about done. Karibu.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? All protocols observed. I want to say I'm very glad to join the NIC in launching this important report. First of all, I want to send greetings from the chair of EACC, retired Archbishop Eliud Wabukara. He was engaged somewhere, so he asked me to represent him. Second, I want to congratulate the Commission for launching this important report, which is a milestone in achieving their mandate of promoting relations, harmony, and peaceful coexistence of all citizens of this great country. Our mandate at EACC is to combat and fight corruption. And corruption eats into the resources of the economy. I noticed when the report was being presented, one of the triggers of violence is inequality. How can we achieve equality in our country? Is making sure that the public resources are used well. When people take public resources and use them for their personal use, they deny the citizens the much needed services, infrastructure, education, and all that. So as EACC, we want to ensure that the public resources are used for their intended purposes. The other thing is also at EACC, we are very, we would like to provide people with information about voting for people with integrity. When you vote people with integrity, you are ensuring that Kenya prospers. So this report, we can use it to provide good information about integrity issues. And remember at EACC, when we, our role, especially in elections, is to provide information about the integrity of potential candidates. We do not clear candidates. Lastly, as a sister agency, we want to say that we work with all the other agencies to make sure that we have a peaceful election and that Kenya remains a stable country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muiro. Please pass our regards to retired Archbishop Wabukala. He has always supported our activities and, you know, our institution at large. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is still a lady. I'm a happy woman today. Her name is Mrs. Anne Makori, and she's the chairperson of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA. Karibu sana.
Chairman, even as I adopt all the protocols, I must recognize you, my colleague. and also recognize the representatives of our minister from the Ministry of Interior in coordination of national government. And from there, I'll adopt all the protocols previously established by the previous speakers. Thank you very much for inviting us. And congratulations to you and your team for this report of its kind. We are very excited about this report. It's the first study ever before elections that has mapped the hotspot areas, and to emphasize how important Independent Policing Oversight Authority takes this report. And before I make my remarks, I would like to let you know we are here with the CEO. I told him you must come along with me, Mr. Halake. Yes, I told him we must go there with you to hear the contents of this report, because you know what it means to our work. Independent Policing Oversight Authority, easily referred to as IPOA, is public interest in policing. And we do this drawing our mandate from Article 244 of the Constitution of Kenya, that requires that the members of the National Police Service shall increasingly work towards becoming professional, shall be accountable, transparent, and shall observe human rights and fundamental freedoms as they carry out their work of policing. And therefore, as IPOA, we are very happy with this report. And why are we happy with this report? Because our responsibility, among others, is to monitor the work of the police members of the National Police Service. And therefore, wherever you have a police officer, you would expect that IPOA will be present. This report will influence the deployment of security providers, the law enforcement agencies, and the law enforcement officers from the National Police Service. And the deployment of the police naturally influences like-minded, like NCIC, wherever they require security presence. Obviously, they are, in other words, telling us IPOA will be present. Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, IEBC, other state and non-state agencies in that regard. I'm happy to note that a lot of initiatives have been put in place, including Peace Caravan. I believe when we all put these efforts together, then Commissioner Dr. Makori, and he asked me how is IPOA. I told him IPOA will be fine as long as NCIC is fine. Yes, if NCIC is not fine, naturally IPOA cannot be fine. So we are looking forward to NCIC ensuring an election that is violence-free, that is credible, of course working with IEBC, and we commit to join hands with you to ensure elections bila norma. Asanteni sana.
Thank you. Asante sana, Madam Chair. From very many different institutions. It's because of the recommendations that Commissioner Dr. Makori gave us earlier today. And he said the approach that we need to use so that we can avert the violence that we are likely to experience is by multi-sectoral approach. So when you hear that Nairobi has an 80% likelihood of violence, what does that mean to us as people living in Nairobi? Is that there is only a 20% chance for a peaceful election in Nairobi. And when you hear that there is a 53% likelihood of electoral violence, that means...
Thank you for inviting me to this very important meeting, and I especially appreciate all the ministers, the chairs, other very important persons here, including the resident coordinator of the United Nations. As a representative of Sweden, I must say that I'm very happy to see that there are so many different perspectives by people representing different organizations, I hope also different parts of the country. We also have elections in Sweden in August, and as for you, we now try to focus on ensuring that as many people as possible can be part of the election process. And that, of course, includes having the access to information, access to a just system, which ensures people to be able to speak up, to raise their voices, to have different opinions. Sweden has had peace for 200 years, and we hope to have peace for another 200 years. Doesn't mean that we haven't had, of course, clashes between different groups and people with different opinions. We nowadays have a lot of people coming from different countries living in Sweden, now being new Swedes, or preserving their original citizenships but taking part of Swedish politics. From what I've heard here today in Kenya, I think Sweden has, together with Kenyan partners, and often through the UN system, such as UNDP, and with the UN peace builders, we have tried to support organizations and commissions and civil society organizations to support a just and fair system here. And of course, Kenya as such is perhaps a little bit more of a new country, newer than Sweden, because we have been Swedes since the Vikings, when we used to fight a lot, of course. Nowadays we're more peaceful. But I think we learn a lot from being part of the process in Kenya and seeing that in spite of COVID, in spite of all the difficulties that you've had during the last couple of years, the election process so far, even though this report shows that there are hotspots, there are, of course, possible challenges in terms of the next coming weeks, I think we all can conclude that many people in the country and from the Swedish embassy, we travel a lot across the country. We see that people participate, people are engaged, and I'm especially happy to see that so many women now do participate here today, but also in the election process. And that is, of course, fundamental if we want to see equal and fair elections. So I also hope that young people, to a large extent, do engage out in the country as well as in Nairobi, because as we all know, young people are the next generation and they need to participate and feel responsible for their country's future. So Sweden will be your partner in the coming years, as we are now, to ensure that we have an inclusive and fair and justice society. And I hope that Kenya will be able to show us Swedes in the future the roadmap on how to succeed with ensuring a good election system and also a parliament that really takes everybody into consideration. So thank you very much for inviting me, not being a Kenyan, to this very important meeting, and I wish you all good luck in the future elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Anika. Please pass our regards to the Honorable Ambassador, and NCIC is always grateful for your presence and support you accord us all these years. After these guests, we are going to have a little bit of entertainment, so I would request the entertainment team to be ready. Our next guest is the UN Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson. Karibu sana, Daktari. I know you know a bit of Swahili. You're welcome. Please, let's welcome him with a loud clap. Thank you very much.
Our august chair, Reverend Daktari Samuel Kobia, Madam Deputy Chair, Madam CEO, Waheshimiwa, Marafiki, Hamjambo. And I feel like I should be greeting one other individual today, and that's Kevin. You know, Kevin is an Irish name. I'm from Ireland. Kevin is a name from the Irish language. Kevin was a saint, a man of peace, and his name means nobly born, born of nobility in the Irish language. So I feel like we're giving Kevin, the Kenya Electoral Violence Index, we're giving Kevin a noble birth today. And he has many godmothers and godfathers, which is great. You know, elections are vital and sensitive moments in the life of any country, in countries all over the world in recent years, and my own Ireland included. We've seen that the democratic process is actually often attended by moments of deep challenge. But if elections are truly about anything, then they're about the promise of peaceful change. Uchaguzi bila noma, as the slogan so beautifully puts it. We also know, friends, that we in the United Nations, it's just as Annika just said, we're not Kenyans, we're outsiders for the most part. We are, I trust, your friends, your supporters, Kenya's friends, but we remain outsiders, and we're conscious of that. This is your country, your future to shape through peaceful democratic elections, and our only aim from the United Nations is to offer you the advice and support that we can. And when it comes to the elections, I think we have only two collective goals. Number one, that they take place, and number two, that they take place peacefully. The rest, and it's a pretty large rest, is up to you. It's for Kenya and Kenyans to determine. It's a Kenyan affair alone. Now, Marafiki, from my outsider perspective, it seems to me that actually things right now are going reasonably well, a little more than 2 months out from the August elections. And right now what we see in the country is what I would call the regular rough and tumble of the political wrestling ring. Because that is, after all, what it is. It's a wrestling ring. And in the wrestling ring, pretty much everything goes. The high hits to the head, the low blows to the, well, somewhere else, a little bit lower down. Huh? That rough and tumble is what we call democracy. It goes with the territory. So there are only two things, again, that should concern us. Number one is if the rough and tumble, the violence of the wrestling ring, of the democratic political space, tumbles out into the audience, into the general population. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's what Kevin is talking about today. And similarly, we would be worried if members of the audience started to climb into the wrestling ring and get involved in the rough and tumble there. So what is it, Marafiki, that prevents either of those two things from happening? Well, at a wrestling match, what prevents that from happening is the ropes around the wrestling ring. And Kenya is blessed with very strong ropes. And I see them in this room. Civil society is amongst those ropes around the wrestling ring. An independent media, an independent judiciary, the religious confessions, Reverend Kobia, the private sector even is part of those ropes. But most of all, the strongest and most important rope of the lot, I think, is Kenya's incredible national peace infrastructure, with the NCIC as one of the very strongest. And that's why we at United Nations Kenya so passionately support you, Kenya's valiant national peace infrastructure. And Reverend Kobia, we're full of deep admiration for your leadership and for the vital work of the NCIC. So what does that, please, yeah. So what role does that leave for the United Nations? How should we help? We're not the ropes around the wrestling ring, that's you. What we would hope to be is amongst the pillars holding up those ropes, strengthening you, Our role is to support you, Kenya, Kenyans, and particularly critical institutions like the NCIC. Again, these are going to be Kenyan elections conducted by, for, and with Kenyans peacefully. Uchaguzi bila noma. And it's our honor to help and support you. And together, I think, we can continue to do what we're doing right now, which is holding up those wrestling rings, the wrestling ring ropes, and keeping the rough and tumble where it belongs, inside the ring. Now, Marafiki, despite their reputations to the contrary, and actually this is true in most countries, most politicians are truly engaged in trying to better their country. That's not always how we think about politicians, but most of them are truly trying to improve things. But we all know that there's a small number of political actors in any country who will always try to manipulate or inflame the situation if it is to their advantage. Sadly, that's something that we've seen in past elections here. We know it can be dangerous. And so it's critically important for us to be ready. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. We have to be confident for the best, but also prepared for the worst. And that's why we in UN Kenya are so proud to be with you today to launch this hotspot mapping. Mapping hotspots is not, let's be really clear about this, it's not about naming and shaming, it's not about victimizing or blaming particular parts of this great country. It's simply about recognizing, and we heard in great detail the science of this, the data of this. It's simply about recognizing where a confluence of different factors, some of them local, sure, and specific to any given county, but many of them national or regional or global, related to the climate,
I would like to teach you, because it's very, very simple. When I say amani, you say milele. When I say milele, you say amani. Okay? We wanted to say that we will want to concentrate very much on our weakest link so that this chain will remain strong. Every 5 years, we are treated to heightened tensions, threats of violence, hate speech, and political vitriol that threatens to throw us into violence. It is in this threat that we live under what we now clearly know as NCIC mantra of elections bila norma. The roadmap that we launched in December of 2020 has continued to really guide us and give us a very clear way towards elections bila norma, August 2022. And this was our commitment and has been our commitment since then. As part of this journey, we have had the symposia with the different stakeholders, collaborated with the local and international players, and rolled out various interventions to ensure we achieve our goal of elections bila norma. I really want to say that I have been very much helped by the analogy of a wrestling ring that my brother Kaka Stephen Jackson has said, and that around the ropes around that ring, we are all here, whether we are talking of IPOA or ORPP, and who are these rings. And if we really continue with that, and then our international community consider themselves as pillars for that ring, then it is these synergies, it is the cooperation and the coordination of this work that can clearly guarantee the elections bila norma and can help us to move with confidence towards August 9th of this year. And therefore, through the process that we have established, we learned that there is a need to map out our country and know which places are likely to have violence. This report that we are launching today is another big step in our roadmap to elections bila norma. We are aware that it is not only important to take action against any form of possible violence, and to do so, we need to forewarn our country and therefore forearm our country. And that has also been mentioned here before. One who has been forewarned is one who has been forearmed. And that's what we wanted to do with this report. Not that we wanted to show the vulnerabilities that there are. Of course, it's important to identify that. But the whole idea is then to see if that's what it is, what we need to do in order to mitigate the challenges that we have. The report is not just telling the country where the hot spots are, but it is a tool we can use to ensure there is peace in our country on the way to, during, and after the elections. During our research, we realized that there are some key players that contribute to the peace and stability of our nation. First are our institutions. Those, rings, those ropes that we have. These institutions, which in one of them, we are one of them, are involved in handling the elections, but key among these is IEBC and the judiciary. And this has been already mentioned in the previous speeches. Second, of course, are institutions which handle sensitive matters that have perennially caused conflict. These include institutions like the National Land Commission. To address the matter that concern our institutions, we came up with a raft of recommendations. And this raft of recommendations was summarized by Commissioner Danvers Makori when he was giving us a summary of the recommendations. So these recommendations are to IEBC, to the judiciary, to the National Police Service, to ORPP, to Parliament, to NLC, and even to ourselves as NCIC. You will read the details of these recommendations, but let me single out really what has also been mentioned here, as I would say, the national security apparatus, because this is what is really key. And I want to say that, you know, what the report says, notwithstanding, we have tried to follow very closely since the report had been done and it was being prepared. And I would say that 2 months since the time that we ended this study, we must commend our security apparatus and the government for making progress in the months that those 2 months that we have had. And the issues and the hotspots that were mentioned, I would say that if those who are now to be studied today, will be telling a different story. And this is where I feel that there is great hope. In fact, it is becoming very clear that if the government continues to deal with the issues in the hotspots, there will be no cause for alarm come August 9 this year. For this was what we have found out only last week when we had a meeting even with KEPSA, and what was presented by the CS Interior, by the IG and others, it was very clear that in these areas now, there is no, I would say if we studied them today we will have much less red in the report. And for that, I wanted to say that we commend the national security apparatus. And I want to say that I would very much affirm what CS Matiang has said, and I think our Vice Chair said in her remarks here, to affirm that the country is safe. And I think, Kaka Stephen also mentioned this, I think knowing and seeing the progress made, we can say that we don't have to be so alarmed, but on the other hand, we don't have to drop the guard. We must continue to be guarded, and we must therefore do all we can to make sure that we address the weak link. Now, to address the unfolding electoral context, the Commission profiles the following key recommendations. Number one, electoral management bodies and other stakeholders' capacities are enhanced to increase electoral integrity as a prevention to conflict. And this was addressed very ably by our sister Derito when she said, you know, if NCIC is not doing its work properly, then it will impact negatively on theirs. But of course, that's why we work so closely together as we move on. So we need to be clear that as EACC, also Vice Chair said, the electoral integrity will only happen if we work together. The second recommendation I want to single out is that the general public embraces full participation in the electoral process, the general public observe the rule of law, resist manipulation, desist from engaging in hate speech and propaganda, and embrace alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the face of conflicts and electoral disputes. This really is saying that going to streets is not an option. That's what we must embrace as all Kenyans. That for any disputes, for any problems that we might have that are electoral related, going to streets is not an option. And this is a message that we will work very closely, I would say, and that we'll do this with the political parties and their leaders, and say that any who calls people to the streets then is an enemy of electoral peace in this country, and that cannot be accepted. Thirdly, is that the standard encourages the media, for the state, to exercise conflict-sensitive communication and reporting. And I think Ben had mentioned this at the beginning. We need you to conduct citizen empowerment and civic education through what you say, package and disseminate information to relevant stakeholders dealing with the elections, and take up strict adherence to the code of conduct and the media guidelines. And from now on, we have to continue to work with the media so that we will remind each other, and we continue with the synergies that are again needed in order to be able to achieve the objective of elections bila norma. The fourth recommendation is that the study puts forward to the civil society organizations that they should enhance civic education and public awareness, build the institutional capacities and practices of political parties in the areas on intra-party dispute resolution mechanisms, embrace debunking of hate speech and fake news, adopt and support peace messaging programs, strengthen observation and monitoring of the electoral processes, and lastly, but still very importantly, is implement programs that aim at bettering community security agency relationships. And because the civil society organizations are there at the very grassroots, not only those that are centered here in Nairobi or in other metropolitan areas, but even as importantly also in the uko mashinani. And fifthly, I want to come back to Nakanda. This has been mentioned previously, and we have an MOU with the Nakanda, and therefore we would want, we are recommending that Nakanda enhances strict adherence to the national guidance on alcohol and drug prevention to deal with the widespread unchecked drug and substance abuse within the Kenyan counties, and that majority of these drug and substance abuses are subsequently used to perpetrate conflict and carry out acts of violence. And this is especially with the young people. It had been mentioned previously here on this podium that young people in particular, really we need to focus on that. Nakanda and the report clearly shows that drug and substance abuse is really part of what are the triggers of election-related violence. Well, brothers and sisters, whereas we realize that these steps will go a long way in mitigating violence and ensuring a more cohesive society, we also recommend that we consider the idea espoused in our Constitution and especially in Section 10 on national values. Now, we have said that we would like to encourage Kenyans to become Section 10 citizens. We have spent much time creating institutions, building roads, and ensuring we have a developing country which meets international standards. And we have engineered our physical world, but we have not re-engineered our society. The social aspect of our society also need to be re-engineered so that the values, when we talk of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, EACC, or Section 10, Article 10 of the Constitution, then these are areas in which we would say we are behind. The infrastructure that we have put, physical infrastructure, and we need to be complemented by social infrastructure. And therefore, re-engineering our society in a way that we will have Article 10 Kenyans and Chapter 6 leaders that will go a long way in ensuring peace. We have not looked at the humans who use our highways or who do business in this country. Therefore, we do need to create a curriculum based on patriotism and the behavior of a true patriotic Kenyan. A patriotic Kenyan starts not when you become a leader, but it's really at the very lower level in primary school all the way to university. This is important because if we have a better Kenyan, we will also have better Kenyan officials, better Kenyan institutions, and a better Kenya in general. And this is where I have always said that what really we need to be asking is what kind of Kenyan we want today, so that we'll be able even to have trust in our institutions. Because trust deficit in our institutions is what causes a lot of problems. If you don't trust IEBC, then you will not trust the announcement, the results that they will announce. And that is where the problem starts. So we need to see how to improve trust in our institutions, trust between communities, and trust between the people and the state. It is this ultimate goal, therefore, brothers and sisters, that we must look to make sure that we have the nation become more cohesive at personal level, then at communal level. It's only then that we will dream of a cohesive Kenya that we will be proud of. To achieve this goal, we must start at the family, as I've said, at the family level, at the school level, including the curricula that we have, our tertiary institutions, and ultimately the civil service training. This nation suffers not just from politicians who seek violence and division, but it also suffers from a society that can be divided and can be made violent. Because that really is that's the elephant in the room, if you wish. That if really we have a people who can be so easily manipulated and can be organized to be violent and actually accept to be violent, this is the biggest problem that we have. And the standard identifies those, particularly the new ways in which gangs are organizing themselves. Not just being organized by politicians, but actually Kenya has reached a point where some Kenyans know selling violence is lucrative. And therefore, they'll organize themselves, and they'll tell politicians and political parties, we actually can sell you, we can do violence for you. And therefore, because sometimes this is needed by politicians, then you have selling violence gangs. And they have organized themselves as such, and these are named in the report. We must also remember that we have entertained a society in which anger, bitterness, depression, and mental illness are not addressed sufficiently. Our media loves bad news, and our prophets love doom and gloom. We add to the pain of Kenyans by normalizing bad news and never creating a hopeful and unifying message. The maxim that, that if it blinks, it leans to, if it blinks, it leans also to creation of a nation that has normalized bleeding, that has disregarded the silver linings in life and is focused on bad news with little hope for the future. What we don't realize is that a hopeless nation is more likely to commit itself to violence. Further, if we don't own our development, own our nation with pride, then we are also likely to destroy it with ease. And this is where particularly, again, I'm addressing the young people. Because there are studies also that have shown that there's so much hopelessness among Kenyan youth, and that is what leads sometimes to being easily manipulated. And we must create hope. I think it's the vice chair again who said that what we really want to do, regardless of all what we have said and what we have as findings of this report, how do we create hope? How do we create hope such that young people and all Kenyans will know that elections will come and go, and there is hope that life after elections will be a better life. We need a people who are proud to belong, who own not only the now, but also own the future of our nation. To do so, we must begin to breathe hope into our nation and more so into our young people. We must make each Kenyan a builder of Kenya, not a spectator and a complainer. We must own this country if we hope to build a great future in it. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me say that there is no higher calling in life than to serve God and to serve country. It is in the pursuit of this service that we can truly build a better, more cohesive, more integrated society and a better Kenya for all of us. Therefore, inasmuch as we have mapped out hotspots, we must be aware that it is our actions as Kenyans, it is our actions as politicians, and it is our actions as institutions that we can ensure a peaceful Kenya for August 2022 and beyond into the longer future. It is with a call to all of us to be dedicated to a better Kenya and a better Kenyan that I would like to end these remarks. And thank you all for joining us today. God bless us all. God bless Kenya. Asanteni sana. Amani milele. Amani milele. With those ones, I really want now to be to take this very special honor and the privilege to invite Mr. Arthur Osia, the Secretary of National Government